Hi guys, Scotty P with ScottyFullStack.com coming to you with a new video on a job description that covers a lot of DevOps technologies. It's for a DevOps role through a tech recruiter here in the Tampa Bay area. So wanted to cover that and go through and make a quick tutorial on how to build a portfolio to submit to a recruiter such as this. So these skills will be able to be transferred to other jobs, so feel free to take what you want and piece it together and play around with this further. The job is asking for Docker, Jenkins experience, cloud experience, Google, Azure. We're going to use AWS. Doesn't really matter in the end. Nobody actually cares. They all really do the same thing. Infrastructure as code, which would be Terraform or CloudFormation. We're using Terraform. Ansible for automating. And CI/CD, which we're not really going to jump too deep into, but we are going to just deploy an image via SSH from Jenkins to a web server. Here's the project that we're going to build. Here we have on the bottom, in the blue section, is going to be our computer. It's us, local machine, here at home. We're going to be using these technologies just as the job description asks for. Terraform is going to use to build a Jenkins server and a web server, again in AWS. Then we're going to use Ansible to automatically configure both of those servers to be to have everything installed that we want them to utilize. So then from there, in the cloud, we have our Jenkins server that's been built and configured, and our Docker web server that's been configured, and we are going to SSH from Jenkins into the web server and run a Falcon app, just very brief app with some text being displayed with two routes that then we can hit from just our browser publicly and be able to view that site. So we're going to make an HTTP request, and then we're going to get the response back from that Docker application. Those web servers and Jenkins server are going to be in EC2 AWS. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Prerequisites that are needed are going to be Docker, an AWS account, AWS Vault, which we're going to use to authenticate into our AWS account from our machine. It's going to allow Terraform to speak to our AWS account. So if you don't know what that is and you don't have it, check out the blog post that's attached to this video and in the description and install that. Again, I have links for all this all in the blog post and even more description on how to install some of these. So check that out. You're going to need Ansible, you're going to need Terraform, you're going to need Python, which you should already have, and you're going to need a text editor or an IDE. I use VS Code because I like it a lot, and a lot of people make fun of me for it. So go ahead, get all that stuff, and because you're definitely going to need that before we begin. So once you're ready, jump back on, and let's start with our Terraform piece and getting AWS set up. So looking forward to it, guys. See you soon. Welcome back. I hope that you didn't have too much trouble installing all of those prerequisites. If you have any questions, again, go to the blog post, check it out, join the Slack channel, ask what you want, and I will get to you in whatever ways I can and as quickly as I can. So, all right, so let's go ahead and start out with the Terraform piece, setting up our servers via Terraform. So we have a Jenkins and a web, as we saw in the last segment, and we're going to do that through AWS. So let's get our user set up, get our access key and secret key. We're going to make a group while doing that, a security group, not a security group, sorry, a user group, an IAM group. And then we're going to set up AWS Vault to allow us to exec in and then be able to use Terraform to make changes to our AWS account. So here I am inside the AWS Management Console. Again, I reiterate this everywhere on blog posts and whatever else, but we're going to be doing everything in the free tier. as much as we can. So this particular tutorial should be completely free. You don't need to worry about payment. So here, we're going to start out in the IAM section. I have it here because I'm recently visited. If you're new to AWS, it's under Security, Identity, and Compliance, and we're going to click on it. Here we are. We're going to go to Users, and we're going to add a user. We're going to name this user. You can name it whatever you want. I want to name this user just DevOps01 because it makes it easy for me to know. I'm going to give it programmatic access, and we're going to go to Permissions, create the group, and I'm just going to name this group DevOps01. You named it. I'm going to give this user administrative access. Be very careful with this. It has all rights to our AWS account. No tags, click through. We're in review, looks good, and create that user. Now we have our access key and secret access key. You can download the CSV if you want to keep it in your records. I'm just going to use it real quick, because I don't really need to keep this account. I'm actually going to delete this so none of you can get sneaky. All right, so here we are in a terminal, and I'm just going to use AWS Vault add DevOps01. It's going to ask me for my access key, so let's paste that in, and then let's go back and grab the secret key, paste that in. Cool. Now we're in. So now if I wanted to, I could do, and just to get in there, AWS Vault exec, DevOps01. And I'm in. So that's it. It's pretty easy to do. And now we are exec'd in our terminal, and we can create our Terraform file and then, start to make changes. All right, so picking up from where we had just left off, we created our user, we permissioned our user with a group that had administrative rights that we created, and then we were able to set up our AWS Vault and exec in via our terminal. So now what we're going to do is we're going to get inside of our EC2 dashboard, make sure everything's prepped and ready to go. Then we're going to build our Terraform files and create these two EC2s, one for the web server and one for the Jenkins server. So here in our dashboard, what I want to do first is set up my key pair, and I'm going to just call it DevOps01, and I'm going to make the PEM because I'm Linux. There it is. It's in my downloads folder, and I already have one in there, so I'm just going to rename it. But actually, we can do that now. So I'm going to move from my downloads, DevOps01 PEM, to my .ssh folder, and I'm going to name it, of course, DevOps01 PEM. And yes, I want to overwrite. And then what I need to do is I need to chmod it at 400, chmod 400 in .ssh DevOps01 PEM, and there we go. So now it's we'd be able to exec into an instance if we needed to. So our key's all set up, and our instance is, or our AWS is ready to go. So I'm going to jump on over. I'm actually going to, from this terminal, just open up. So where I am right now, I've created a folder called DevOps01. It's a project folder, nothing inside of it. I'd recommend you do the same thing, and then you can push this up to a repo later if you want. But we're going to just do everything inside of here. I'm going to go ahead and make a directory and call it Terraform to keep all my Terraform files in. Let's get inside there. And I'm going to make two directories for Jenkins and our web. So there we have our two directories inside of our Terraform. And then I'll go into my Jenkins, and we're going to start here. So I'm going to create a file called main.tf. That's our Terraform file. And here we are. Okay, so from here, what we're going to do to start is actually, before we get too crazy, I'm going to open up a gitignore file. Because if you are going to push this up to GitHub, you're going to want to make sure you keep out, let me see here. You're going to make sure you keep out any large files. Ignore Terraform. So this here, and I've linked this on the blog post, so if you want to copy it you can, but this is basically the standard GitHub gitignore for Terraform projects that you're going to want to use, because otherwise you won't be able to push this up. So there we go. So that's there, all done with that. Now let's get started. So I'm going to use, we're using AWS, so I'm going to use provider, AWS, and then our default region is going to be US East 1. Okay, so there's that, and save it. And then what I'm going to do is throw in a variable, and you don't necessarily have to do this, but I do it kind of by default because because we will want to name our instance upon deploy. So name the instance on deploy. Okay, and you'll see that in action here in a minute and see what I'm talking about. And then we're going to create a new resource, and this one's going to be an AWS instance. And then the name of this, we can call it like, DevOps 01 Jenkins. Okay, and then from inside here, we're going to do an AMI, which, let me show you, there are ways to do this. You can do it from Terraform, but just so you understand what's going on with this, we're going to go to our Amazon machine images, and sorry, that is not right. We're going to go to launch instance, and then use free tier, and I'm going to use Ubuntu 18, so I'm going to take this AMI image, right, and you can use any one that you want that makes sense for you, and then yeah, so it's that simple. Just plug in that AMI ID, and then we're going to want to again keep this in the free tier. So instance type equals T2 micro, and then the key name is what we just created, which I use DevOps 01. Okay, so that easy. And then the last thing I want to throw in here is the tags field, and this is where our variable comes into play. So the tag, which is name, is going to be var.name. Right, so we're done. So that is our Terraform file. What I want to actually do is just inside there, copy Jenkins main, and I want to actually just put it into web. And then I can go open that web main. And what we'll do here is just name this web. So we're keeping those files separate, and everything else is going to remain the same because it's pretty much the same thing. And then what we can do is I can get right into Jenkins, and then we're going to do a Terraform init. That's going to download our AWS plugin, and we'll do the same thing for web. So I'll pause it, you do that, do a Terraform init in both, and then come on back. We're going to go ahead and run a Terraform plan. So I'm going to do this, and make sure you've got your AWS exec done. So here we're going to do Terraform plan. I'm going to name this instance Jenkins. It's going to spit out what we're changing slash adding, right? So we have our AMI that we set, T2 micro, our key name, and then a lot of defaults as well. Plan 1 to add, 0 to change, 0 to destroy. So we're good with that. So we're going to do apply to Jenkins. It's going to ask me to confirm. Yes. And then what we can do is pop on over to our EC2 dashboard. And we should see this spinning up. Yep, there it is. That easy. So let's go ahead and do the same thing for the web, and then come on back here, and we'll continue moving. All right, and we're back. So we have Jenkins and web set up. If you have any questions about the web, just go back and repeat the Jenkins process, just name it web and do it from the web folder in our Terraform directory. And so that's it. We are actually up and running. We have 2 instances. really with nothing installed on them. But if you wanted to try to connect, you can connect pretty conveniently using that, or you can always just do it yourself. Copy your link, and then we can go down to a terminal, and I can do SSH and paste Ubuntu, because that's our user. The Ubuntu comes standard with the Ubuntu user, and then designate our key, which is SSH DevOps 01 PEM, and yes, and I'm in. So pretty cool stuff, and that comes with the default security group, so we will likely make some changes to that, or not. I mean, it depends on what you guys want to do. You can do that yourself. You can put your IP on there so only you can log in from your address, or you can leave it open and tear this down whenever you're done. So awesome. So let's take a minute and review what we did. So we created our user, permissioned the user, got into AWS Vault, then we wrote our Terraform file for both Jenkins and web, and then we planned and applied those changes to our EC2. So the next step in the process is to build those Ansible scripts, and so we will do that in the next segment. Awesome, and nice work. All right, so let's talk about Ansible. So we're going to be using Ansible to configure our servers remotely, and in theory we could update many servers with the same configuration and only automate it, or only do it once and then automate it the rest of the time, right? So what we're going to do here is we're going to configure our Jenkins server, and we are going to configure our web server with Ansible playbooks. And so let's start there, show you what we need to do in regards to making those playbooks and updating our host file. But if you haven't had this installed already, check out the blog, go to the documentation, and install Ansible on your machine. So what we'll do is I'm going to start out, we're going to create that Ansible directory, and then inside of that Ansible directory we're going to have two files. So let's start these from scratch here. I'm going to open up provision. We're going to do Jenkins first, right? Save it, and then we can also open a provision web. Right, so those are going to be our two playbooks. And so before we kick that off, let's do a sudo vim. This is going to be in etc Ansible hosts. Put in my sudo password. All right, so here inside of our host file, we're going to denote there's a web server section and there's a Jenkins section, and we put that in. Your file should just have comments in it if you're new to this, and then we need to update our servers and keys in these lines here, right? So if I go back to my instances, I'm going to grab that public address and come back to my file. And so here, this one was Jenkins. So what we're going to do is do Ubuntu at, so because Ubuntu is the user, at our public address, and then we're going to do Ansible SSH private key file and point that to our DevOps 01 file. And we're going to do the same thing with the web server. So let's do that. There we go. Paste that in. Okay, and then save that. So there's that. And now let's go back to our files. So let's start with the Jenkins. These are YAML files, so if you don't know much about YAML, be careful with your tabs or spacing because it's very dependent on that. So we're going to name this entire playbook the configure Jenkins playbook. And then we're going to do hosts is our Jenkins host that we denoted in our file. Oops, lowercase j. And then the tasks we're going to do below. So let's add a new task. We'll call it install. Well, let's first, before we jump into that, let's talk about what we're going to need, because that is obviously a key requirement here. So if we jump over to the install Jenkins page, Jenkins runs over the JVM, so we know that we're going to need Java, and we'll need our web browser for the admin panel, which we already have clearly, and then we need to come down and we're going to have to install and start Jenkins for Ubuntu, Debian Ubuntu, wherever that went. There it is. So here, so we're going to use these lines here to download Jenkins, and then we're going to start it in initd. So let's do the first one. We need Java, right? So let's do install Java requirements, or something of the nature of that. And then we're going to use apt because it's Ubuntu. And within apt, we're going to update cache. Yes, because we want the updated packages. And then we're going to do name of that is default-jdk, right? And then the last thing we need is become yes, because we want to do sudo. The next that we need is to install Jenkins, right? So this one, instead of apt, we're going to use it's a shell, where it's multi-line, and then below it, we are going to pop back over Jenkins, grab the script as is, and throw it in there. Watch our tabs. And that's fine. Sudo's in there, so we don't need to worry about the become user. However, we do need to add on the end of this a -y and a -y, so that those will auto confirm that we do want to install those packages, and it won't hang. So look for that if you have any issues. It's often missed. So then the next one, we're going to run Jenkins, and this is going to be another shell. Whoops, Jenkins, show me the money. And this one was going to be a one-liner, etc init.d, and then Jenkins start, right? And we want to become yes. Cool. That's that. Let's start on our web as well. So what do we need for our web server? We know that we're going to do a Python app, right? That is Dockerized, that well, that's actually about it. So really, we just need to make sure that we have Docker installed, that we start Docker, and wouldn't hurt to have pip on this server because we're going to have Python on it already. So let's add pip3 in there. So let's do name, provision, web servers, and then hosts is from our host file, web servers, and then the tasks are below. So name, first thing we want to do is let's go ahead and install pip3. And you may not need pip3 for this, but it is a helpful tools to get in the habit of. So we're going to use apt, and then we're going to update our cache once. And then we are going to find the Python 3-pip package, and then we're going to become yes. Okay, so that's pip, name, install, same thing but for Docker, oops, and then apt. We don't need to update the cache again. Name is docker.io, and then become is yes. Whoops, took a screenshot for myself apparently. And then the last one is going to be name start Docker. I've got really like wild fingers over here. This one's going to be shell. Probably hear it too on my keyboard. It's a lot of fun. We're going to do system control start Docker. I always get the two confused. always think it's Docker start. System control enable Docker, right? I think, yep. All right, and then, oh my, become, yes. Okay, let's go ahead, and now that we have our playbook set up, let's run Ansible playbook, provision Jenkins. Yes. Let's do the same thing, Ansible playbook provision web. Okay, and these are going to take just a little bit of time, so I'm going to pause it. You do the same thing, and let's check back here in just a few minutes. Okay, so it looks like our Ansible job's finished up. Let me know if you have any issues in the Slack channel, or you can't, get it to work. There's also a GitHub repo, Scotty Full Stack, that you can go and get the code if you need to, but try to figure out any errors on your own if you do get some. So cool. So our boxes are configured. Now let's just test this out by going to the web box and checking to see if we have Docker running, right? Because that's what was one of our steps. So let's do SSH, and we're going to do Ubuntu at there -i sh DevOps PEM. Okay, so we're in, and so we do Docker PS, and it's running. So yeah, you can check images too, Docker images. Cool. So that is that. Our servers are configured. Now what we can do is go into Jenkins admin, and we can set Jenkins up. We can get SSH configured on there, and then we can work on security groups and then Dockerize our application. So let's jump into Jenkins now. All right, now let's try to get Jenkins up and running on our browser. So we're going to take that public address, and we're going to go to 8080. And here we are. So we got to our initial screen. We're going to need to put in a passcode that Jenkins provides in our box. So we're going to need that. So let's go back, get our public address again. Make sure you have it copied to your clipboard. And then let's go to here. We're going to go ahead and SSH to Ubuntu at our Docker address with our key. And from in here, now we're going to go back and grab that path. Paste it. We're going to do sudo cat, right? And grab that key. Pop on back here, paste it, and continue. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and install the suggested plugins, and this is going to take a minute, so go ahead and get that done, and then we will come back. And now what we can do is just set up our user, and then get inside. You can do this too with whatever you want. Okay, save and continue. That's fine, and start using Jenkins. Now we're inside, and really what we want to do at this point is just a couple of different things. First of all, we want to install a plugin. Installed available SSH, and did not search. There we go. This one, install without restart. It's going to take just a couple seconds. And voila. Let's go back to dashboard. Let's add some SSH credentials. So from here, Jenkins, global credentials, add, do SSH, and then username was Ubuntu for our user. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add in our private key, which I'm going to allow you to see mine because I delete these. So once I'm done, so let's do a cat, a pem, and then there we go. Copy that, and I'm going to come back and then paste it. Okay, so that's good. So we have credentials now, and yeah, that's really about it from the configuration side that we needed to set up right now. And we will come back in here. Oh, actually, nope, sorry, false. Go to configure system real quick. Just a very quick step. We're going to set up our SSH profile for our web server. So once we're in configure, I'm going to search for SSH, go down, add. The host name is going to be the web instance private IP. And let's, there we go. Go back. 22 is the default SSH. Ubuntu is our credentials that we just made. And then we can check the connection. And we're going to need a security group. So let's hop on over there. So security groups, what we're going to do is open this in a new tab. And we're going to create a security group for our web server. So I'm going to create one. I'm going to call this web 01 or whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. SSH for web. We're going to do an inbound rule, add it, and then we're going to do SSH. And this is going to be specifically, I don't want anybody SSHing in here. So that shouldn't be, right? So I'm going to use just my Jenkins box. Which I think that, yeah, private to private is fine, right? We'll find out, I guess. Create. Actually, want to add some more to that web one here. Let's edit our inbound rules. Let's add, while we're at it, let's do a all TCP from anywhere, and then let's do a HTTP from anywhere, because we'll use those later. Okay, and then let's go back to EC2 and check our instances. Go to web, it's running. And we're going to change actions, networking, change security groups. I'm going to use web server 01, the one I just made. Sign. And there we go. So now if I come back to Jenkins, check it again, and now we're successful because we've allowed Jenkins to go that IP address to SSH to our web server. So cool. All right, let's save it. And we're good with Jenkins. So awesome. Jenkins setup is complete. And in the next section, we're going to quickly build a Python app with Docker and then build a job and push it to the web server. All right. So now for the Docker portion, I am at my GitHub account, Scotty Fullstack. The folder is DevOps 01. This is where you can find everything. It's all public for you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this Python small Falcon app, because this is not the goal of the course is to learn Python, right? We just want to quickly Dockerize an app and paste it up. All we're doing here is on the 200 response from the route route, we're going to print hello world, and then from the page 2 route, we're going to print this is the second page on the 200 response. So nothing fancy, really. Not at all. So I'm just going to copy that, and we're going to come back to our notepad/IDE, and can get rid of that one. And let's create a new folder inside of our DevOps 01 folder, make dir Docker, and go inside Docker, and then open up a hello.py app. Okay, and I'm going to save it. Cool. And if you haven't yet, you can see I'm importing Falcon there. We're also going to use Gunicorn. So pip3 install Gunicorn and Falcon. Okay, so I already have those installed, but you can do that in a virtual environment, or you can do that just on your local. And cool. So the one the two files that we're going to need are, we're going to need a requirements.txt file and a Docker file. So save it, and then so in the requirements.txt file, I'm going to do a pip3 freeze. So I'm going to do a grep for Falcon, and then after I've pip installed it, I'm going to put that in requirements.txt file, and then I'm going to do another pip freeze with a grep for Unicorn, and I'm going to put that in the requirements.txt file. You can just, paste it in however you want, but this just, if you had a lot, this is a really cool way to add them to your requirements file. So that is that. Now for the Docker file. So if you're not familiar with Docker, it is a container service. So it's gonna, what we do is we build this Docker file, and this Docker file tells Docker how to build our image that we're gonna then, it becomes immutable, and then we're gonna put that onto a server, and we can assume that as long as the base level requirements on that server exist to run Docker, that this image is going to be the same no matter where you deploy it. So it's a safe way to deploy code to an environment and not tear down the environment or break the app. You can easily roll back. So this is a really cool tool that DevOps really everyone should be using. But to start this off, we're going to import a base image from Docker called Python, and the tag is 3. So we're using a Python 3 base image. We're going to run a pip install -- upgrade pip, so to pip3, right? And then we're going to make a workdir. This is standard Docker, so you can always look up documentation if you're confused about anything specific. I'm going to call my working directory hello world. Then I'm going to copy our requirements.txt file to the working directory, and then we're going to run pip3 install -r requirements.txt, right? And that's going to install everything that we just put in that requirements file. And then we're going to copy everything from our directory to the working directory, and then we're going to cmd, and we're going to call Unicorn, and then we are going to bind Unicorn -b to port 8000. Okay, and then we're going to use call app. Okay, so awesome, that's our Docker file. Now, so here's what we'll do now. We'll do a sudo docker build this directory -t for tag, and then we're going to put in our repository and the tag name that we want to call it. Whoops. Sudo. Okay, so successfully tagged and built my image, and then what I'm going to do is sudo docker push to DevOps 01. Okay, they already exist, so obviously I built this before on my machine, and then I'm going to come over here to Docker, and ta-da, so we're there. Okay, so we now have our tag. So that's really it for the Docker piece of this segment. We can do more in-depth videos later on, but that's really the base level of what you need to know for what Docker is, and then you can play around and do more with that on your own, which I totally encourage. But now what we want to do is jump over to our Jenkins portal for the last piece of this. We're going to create a new job called like DevOps, whatever you want to name it. I'm going to deploy, right? I'm going to do that. You might want to name it like deploy web or something practical. Okay, and then we will add a build step, and this is going to be execute shell script. Our credentials that we entered earlier are already there. The command that we're going to run, if you come down to the blog post, you can copy this in or you can run your own, but we're going to name this hello world, and then we're going to run it and bind it to 8000, and then say the image that we want. Now you can parameterize Jenkins to swap out the tag if you want, but I'm just going to hard code it just for, you know, the intent of this video. Apply it, save it, and then do a little dance, cross your fingers, build it, check on the build. And it's downloading the image, all the dependencies. Need elevator music. Okay, success. And then we can jump over to our web public URL. So you can do even the IP or that DNS and paste it in, port 8000. And there we go. Hello world. If I did a slash page 2, this is the second page. So congratulations, guys. You completed the first DevOps video, and actually my first tutorial video ever. So, you know, give me some feedback. Would love it, either in YouTube or on the Slack channel. Send me an email at team@scottyfullstack.com. Any way you guys can reach me, I'm happy to help anytime. We're all in this together. And yeah, anything I can do. So congratulations, nice work. Push this up to GitHub. And don't forget your gitignore file for those massive Terraform packages. And yeah, keep at it. Let's do this. Hope to see you guys again soon.